get Mr. Wood in trouble. What do you do?
More like she already did.
Ah, okay. Now she's trying to say she did it on purpose?
No, I was taking the selfie in the physical washer.
Ooh, tough. If it had been an Usty, it'd been better. Okay. Let's do 3 questions. Harsh. Let's do 3 questions on the property of integrals. You guys already had a little bit of practice on this yesterday with the finding the area under the curves. We did do a lot of practice with properties. So some of this will feel like a review. All right. So let's look at the first one. It says f is a continuous function. And it gives us 2 values for integrals. I have immediately when I read that first line or that first integral, I have alarm bells going off. Why are alarm bells going off with this very first integral? The limits of integration are not least to greatest. So really this should be -7 down here and a +6 up there. So I'm going to rewrite that to be -7 to +6 of our function. All right. But if I do that, what do I have to do to my value of 7? Make it the opposite. All right, so this is one of our properties, Jimena and Anita. You can change the limits of integration whenever you want, but it makes the value of your integral become the opposite. So yesterday, they actually put a negative sign in front of the integral, but because it gives us a value, we can go ahead and make it the opposite. Okay, so I have -7 to +6. Then I have +6 to 7. So this is one of those where I do a number line. So I'm going from -7 to +7. -7 to 6. What is this value here? What is -7 to 6, that value for that integral? Didn't we just find it? -7? Right? Didn't we just do that? -7 to +6 is -7. Okay. And then the other one they gave us is +6 to +7. That value is 3. So if the problem is asking for this one here, right? This is what it's asking for. It's asking for -7 to +7. Do I have all the information I need to find that value? Yes, I'm going to take -7, right? Because that's the value from -7 to +6. So that value plus the value for the integral from 6 to 7. So my math that I would do would be -7 plus 3. And what is -7 plus 3? -4. So this is the answer. Come on, box. There you go. Any questions on the first one? Okay, let's move to the second one. Number 2. Same kind of beginning of the process. I see 5 to 9 for my limits of integration. Any issues with that from 5 to 9? No, right? That is least to greatest. And then what about the next one? -7 to +9. Is that least to greatest? It is. We're good. So okay. So let's do -7 to +9. They gave me the whole thing. So -7. That whole thing is equal to what? Is 4. All right. And then if we split it up into 5 to 9, so this piece, right, this piece here is how much? -2. All right. Now this is why I picked this one for number 2. You'll notice that in my question it's asking for, it doesn't say what I think what hopefully your brain is starting to see. If I have the whole thing, right, -7 to 9, and they give me this little piece, can I find this other part of the whole? Yes, I can find -7 to 5. So that's what I was hoping it would say. When I look here, what do you notice about this here? It's flipped. So we're going to do some work there. So let's finish this first because I'm going to need this value. So I'm going to finish this and then I'll deal with the problem. So what is, let's try to find this. -7 to 5. So it's question mark plus -2 equals what? What's the whole thing? It's 4. I'm just trying to show the work. Georgia, your brain already knows it. So what would that question mark need to be to make that true? It'd be 6, right? So this is equal to 6. All right, everyone still good? All right, so now watch the work that I do with this. So if I change these limits of integration, all right, if I change the limits of integration and write f of x, let's try that again, minus 2, what do I need to put in front of this integral symbol if I change the limits of integration? A negative sign, all right? So if I keep going from here, I'm going to have the opposite. And now watch this. I'm going to split it into 2 integrals. So Jimena and Anita, this is something that they would have done yesterday. So if I split it into 2 integrals, it looks like this. Remember to pause and ask a question if you're confused. So I split it into 2 integrals. Notice what symbol did I use in between my 2 integrals? Subtraction. Why did I use subtraction? Because it says minus 2. What if this had said plus 2? Then this symbol would be addition, right? Change the limits of integration. Now I have 2 integrals. When you have a function and then there's another value, let's say like plus 6 or something, you want to separate it into 2 integrals. Okay. Now notice, have I done anything with the negative at the very beginning yet? No, I'm going to leave that to the very end. So that negative is just going to keep coming down. Now this one we actually know, right? What is the value for the integral from -7 to 5 of my function? We just found it, right? -7 to 5 is 6. So this is going to be 6. Okay? Minus, now I'm going to show this sketch again because Jimena and Anita were not here yesterday. But if I were to graph a y value of 2, right? So if I graph y equals 2, it's going to be this line here. And we're going from, is it -7 to 5? Yes. So here's -7, and here's 5. So if I make the area under the curve, Jimena and Anita, do you see how it makes a rectangle? So to find this value for the integral, you're just going to use your understanding of finding the area of a rectangle. What is this length here from -7 to +5? 12. That's 12. What is my height, or my width? It's 2. So what's 12 times 2? 24. So this would become minus 24. Everyone still doing okay? This is a lot. I think it's the hardest one. That's why I chose this. Okay, what's 6 minus 24? What's 6 minus 24? -18. And then what's the opposite of -18? +18. So that is the answer for number 2. 18 is the answer for number 2. So my bad. You probably ran out of room. Sorry. Any questions on the second one? I think that's probably the hardest one. If you have any questions, I'm happy to come by and help if Angel can't answer. The 12. Okay. So the distance from, I want to find this length, right? So going from -7 to 0 is 7 units. Going from 0 to 5 is 5 units. So 7 plus 5 gives you 12 units. And this, whatever this is, will always be from the problem. So it was 2 because this value was 2. Good question. All right, can I do the last one? Let's do the last one. All right, so number 3. All right, again, we've got 2 integrals, -1 to 2 and -3 to 2. Are any of those out of order? Are the limits of integration an issue? Is this least to greatest? Yep, and this is least to greatest. Awesome. So let's do, looks like I'm going from -3 to +2. Let's cut it up from -1 to 2. So -1 to 2 is what value? Is 8. And then the whole thing, right? The whole thing. What's a -3 to 2? Is 10. So can I find this value from -3 to 1? So it's question mark plus 8 is equal to, what was the whole thing? 10. So what is my value for -3 to -1? +2. All right. Again, I'm going to need that when I finish this problem. All right. Notice, kind of like in number 2, right? What do you notice about these limits of integration here? They're not least to greatest, right? -3 is actually smaller than -1. So I'm going to do the same thing I did in number 2 and switch this. Okay, but remember when you do that, you have to put a negative in front of that integral. Every time you switch the limits of integration, you got to do the opposite of the value. So I didn't do any switch. I mean, I did switching, but the reason I didn't put it in front was because they gave me a value. So I just made the value the opposite. You're welcome. Okay, let's split this up. So I'm going to have the integral from -3 to -1 of our first function. And then plus, see how the sign says +4? So plus the integral from -3 to -1 of 4. Let's see if we can do this one without a sketch. All right. We just calculated the integral from -3 to -1. What was the value for the integral from -3 to -1? 2. So that's going to be 2. Plus, all right, so Hamada, let's see if you can think about this one. What's the distance from -3 to -1? How many units away is -3 to -1? 2, very good. So 2 is the length of my rectangle. Then what's my height or width? 4. So what's 2 times 4? So that's going to be 8 for that value. All right. So what's 2 plus 8? 10. And what's the opposite of that? And that is it.